1.6%. That's the increase international students at the University of Alberta could be paying if a tuition increase is approved for next year. But the Students' Union says international students who are forced to pay market modifiers are being targeted unfairly, especially after dealing with substantial tuition hikes in 5 academic programs last year. Should international students also be part of the NDP's post-secondary tuition freeze? Or should international students be paying a larger bill? And joining us this evening, Navneet Kinda, President of the Students' Union at the University of Alberta, and Nataraj Kav, Vice Provost of Academic Programs and Instruction, also at the University of Alberta. Great to see you both.
You too.
Welcome back. Nataraj, I'd like to start with you. Why pursue this particular tuition increase?
So this particular tuition increase, which is set to the Alberta Consumer Price Index of 1.6%, is important to maintain the services that we have available, the level of programming, the level of support that we have for international students. This is extremely critical because the cost of providing any service to students, which is important for their success, is going up. So that's the bottom line to this.
Now these students
increase.
already, though, they've had to face the so-called market modifier. They pay a higher tuition as it is. How much higher, on average, do you feel these students pay?
So the market modifiers are for selected programs, and the market modifiers are not for all the programs. They are for programs where we had to increase the tuition to get up to the level of our peer institutions and to be able to pay for the costs of educating in those professional programs, in those high-demand programs. The market modifiers that were approved by the previous government were eliminated by this current government, and the government that's in power right now allowed us and provided us with the money for those market modifiers. So this 1.6% is for international students who are tuition fee regulation exempt. In other words, the province of Alberta regulates the fees for domestic students. The province of Alberta does not regulate the tuition for international students. And like I said before, it is all, for this institution, it's all about providing those services. I was an international student myself, and I do appreciate the increased costs the students have to bear.
Okay, so just to clarify, the 1.6% tuition increase is in place of market modifiers?
No, that's not correct. The 1.6% is for international students in addition to the market modifiers, which are a different set of fees which were implemented to bring the costs of those programs up to speed with reality.
Okay, Navneet, where do you stand on this 1.6%?
So this 1.6% is, as the university describes it, it would be CPI if our fees were to increase this year. So to recap, domestic
CPI,
tuition is capped.
Consumer Price Index.
Yes, the Consumer Price Index. So domestic tuition is capped, international tuition isn't. And for me, this presents a huge problem. And while this fee increase might not be big this year, it shows us that there's a lack of regulation provincially, which is really harmful to the individual student as well as to the campus community. And I'll get to that in a second. I really think that it's important we have predictability for international students. You know, if a student's going to be here for a 4 to 6 year period, they should know how much they're paying year to year. In past years, we've seen a 5% increase. This year, we're seeing a 1.6% increase. And a lot of students are rightly frustrated that they don't know how much they're going to pay year to year. And so that's one of the struggles that we have in representing students is we need to ensure that predictability for them.
By and large, though, international students, should they pay higher tuition?
I think that's a much larger social conversation that we need to have in regards to social policy. And so even if I did agree that international students should pay more, and the argument there is that they contribute differently to our tax pool compared to the average Albertan, even if they should pay more, I still think that their increases should be regulated just like my tuition is. That's only fair. That's the only fair way I can see it. If I'm an international student, I shouldn't be paying 10% increase the next year or a 5% increase the year after. And that's what I'm open to. That's what I'm vulnerable to as an international student. And that's not fair.
Nataraj, why wouldn't the Notley government's promise of a tuition freeze apply to international students as well?
Because, like I said earlier, international students are not within the tuition fee regulation, which is the provincial regulation that guides tuition fees for all students. Again, the domestic students are within those. Domestic student tuition is subsidized by the province. International student fees is not subsidized by the province, and as such, we have to pay for the services that we have to provide. And again, the cost of provision of those services keeps going up.
How much of the student body is international? 5,000, 6,000, 7,000?
10 to 14%.
Undergraduate student would be 13.5%. Yeah.
Okay, so how vital, Nataraj, then is the revenue generated by international students to the operation of the university?
So the international tuition is part of a $1.8 billion institutional consolidated budget. It is also part of about $330 million that the university gets in tuition and fee revenue. So it's about $67 million out of that $331 million, which is part of a $1.8 billion enterprise. Now, how important is it? Extremely important, because again, what are we going to lose if we start cutting back on that fees? We are going to lose services. We are going to lose the quality student engagement that we provide. We are going to lose out on the extracurricular opportunities that we provide. Remember that the cost of provision of a quality UFA degree is not just the instructional costs. It is all the other costs associated with all those opportunities that we want to provide our students. And we value our international students very much, and not because they're just cash cows.
Navneet, maybe speak to it from the student's perspective.
Yeah.
You've asked for international tuition to be regulated.
Yep.
If it's not, though, if it continually increases, what does that do to the student body?
It does a lot. I think it really impacts the morale on campus, and I think there's two separate issues here. So the first is with the provincial government. I think they have an obligation to put in place some guidelines or rules or regulations regarding international tuition, especially if we're going to see an increase in international students on all our campuses. And so I think there's a responsibility there. On the campus side of things, I think our institution has a responsibility to charge students fairly. And so, you know what, if we do get more students who can pay more, and I'm sure there's lots of students out in the world who can continually pay higher and higher costs of education, what does that do to the composition of the student body on campus? What kind of student is on campus? Are we reducing the demographic and the diversity of students on campus? And I think we are. And I don't think that's a good thing, because
simply because there are students who can pay more?
Right. And I think that we might be restricting access to some students in favor of students who can pay more. And so what that does to a campus environment is, I think it really changes it. And for the worse. I think we need to make sure we have a diverse student demographic on campus. And we need to make sure students feel respected and feel welcome. And that should be important to the province, it should be important to the country, and it should be important to the university, especially now that the U of A wants to become more nationally renowned. I think we need to really treat our international students fairly. So even if they're going to pay more, they should know what they're going to pay year to year.
And internationally renowned as well, Nataraj.
Yeah. Yes.
How set in stone is this tuition increase?
This 1.6%?
Yes, could it go up? Could it come down? Is it negotiable?
This 1.6% is what is being advanced to the Board of Governors for approval. So that 1.6 is not going to go up or down. That is linked to the Consumer Price Index, as Navneet also pointed out earlier. But let me come back to the cost of educating international students. Yes, I agree that this country needs to have a dialogue about what do we do to help international students. Are we going to adopt a Scandinavian model where every student that comes in, whether international or domestic, pays the same fees, and maybe they pay slightly more, at 50 euros, I read in the case of one institution. Are we going to go there? That is a dialogue this country needs to have. But up until that dialogue happens, we are looking at our peer institutions and saying our cost of providing this valuable education, we are one of the top 5 institutions in the country, and we provide that for less than the average cost that you would incur if you went to other institutions. UBC, for instance, is proposing to increase their international tuition fee significantly. We are trying to work to keep those costs minimum, because we are cognizant of the pressures faced by the students. And the only reason we were able to keep it 1.6% also is because of the Notley government actually reinvesting some of the cutbacks that we faced.
All right, I'm afraid we have to leave it there. We've run shy on time.
All right.
Appreciate your thoughts, both.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.